Happy Diwali!
Happy Diwali!
Oh shit, oh shit. Ouch! Ouch! Oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. Oh shit,
कोई भी हिंदू भरा भैन कोई भी हिंदुओं का कर आतिशबाजी ना करे।
ट्रूडो साहब की जो पुलिस है वो खालिस्तानियों की पक्ष में खड़ी दिख रही है। उनके अंदर मंदिर में आके वहां पे अटैक किए जा रहे हैं और उनको कोई रोकने के लिए तैयार नहीं है।
I mean, after coming out on October 14th, anything's possible.
Astonishing scenes from Canada in the last few hours as pro-Khalistani groups unleashed violence outside a temple in Brampton, an area where a consular camp was being held and organized by Indian diplomats. As condemnations have poured in, starting with Trudeau downwards, most of Canada's politicians have avoided using the K word, the Khalistan word. But it is clear from the images and from the videos that have since gone viral that these were either pro-Khalistan groups or Khalistani separatists themselves who were targeting devotees outside the gates of the Brampton temple. As I mentioned, inside a consular camp had been organized by Indian officials, and ironically, many of those inside were actually elderly Sikhs. This latest development cannot be seen without placing it against the backdrop of threats, brazen threats issued on camera by Gurpatwant Pannun, a man designated as a terrorist by India, who actually, apart from listing specific Air India flights on which he says people must not travel in the month of November, he also warned against the celebration of Diwali. Now, this turn of events is the latest in a nosediving relationship between India and Canada, a relationship that has literally hit rock bottom after Canada over a year ago accused India of a hand in the killing of a man called Hardeep Singh Nijjar, a Khalistani. Gurpatwant Pannun, who's issuing all these threats, was the lawyer for Hardeep Singh Nijjar. He's also the man at the center of friction between India and the United States, where a former RANW official has been accused of an alleged plot to murder Pannu. Pannu's threats have come literally one video a day. They have spoken repeatedly about balkanizing India. What happens next? This is an astonishing turn of events. I want to introduce our panel on the program today as we look at this latest area of a flashpoint between India and Canada and what it means also for whether, as some might say, the chickens have come home to roost for the dangerous politics that Trudeau has played, in particular Trudeau, but all politicians in Canada, with Khalistani extremism. Joining me now is Kushal Mehra. You've seen him in the last few days breaking a number of the developments on this story. He was the first to alert us to this attack outside the temple in Brampton. Kushal is the host of the Shadwak podcast. Welcome, Kushal. It's good to have you back with us. Also joining us is Ambassador Hardeep Singh Nijjar, veteran diplomat. Always a pleasure to have you with us. And also joining us, another veteran diplomat, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. Welcome, all of you. This is a crazy situation, and we cannot divorce it from the video threat. We'll play out, that threat later in the program by Gurpatwant Pannun, asking people not to celebrate Diwali. Now, India has responded, of course, condemned what happened, but I want to just show you a picture. The pictures that, Indian officials released showed that there were elderly Sikhs inside this complex where a consular camp had actually been organized. And it is this consular camp that the pro-Khalistani groups or the Khalistani separatists were targeting, claiming that they were quote-unquote Indian agents inside. But if you look at these pictures, you see how many elderly Sikhs there are inside. So, obviously the Khalistanis or the pro-Khalistanis do not seem to stand for the Sikh community of Canada. That's a no-brainer. Sikhs are very different. Khalistanis are very different. I'll start with you, Kushal, because you're on the ground. What's the latest? What do we know? What's happening?
Well, Barkha, as of now, it's very early morning, so everything will be peaceful over here. It's cold, so one of the good things about being in a cold weather is
Yeah.
people tend to come to protest after it gets slightly warm. But so here's how things have rolled out tomorrow. I was actually scheduled to come back home. I stay far away from I stay far away from Toronto. So
Hmm.
I was in a meeting in the morning. I get videos of what has broken down. So there was a scheduled program of the consulate. This is a very normal procedure. I'm sure both the ambassadors here know these are very normal procedures that happen in usually centers that are, you know, very closely involved with the community. The Hindu Sabha Mandir is a pillar of the community. Please try to understand what the Hindu Sabha Mandir means to the entire community in Brampton. You know, to everyone, it's not just a Hindu mandir. Barkha, I repeat this again and again. During the Shera, more than 50% of the crowd at the Hindu Sabha Mandir every year is from the Sikh community. Every day you will see innocent Sikh members of the community in and around that area come for darshan in the mandir. So please keep this in mind that the Khalistanis want this to become a Hindu versus Sikh issue. This is a Hindu Sikh versus Khalistani issue. I want to put
Hmm.
this on the record because we should not let them get
Yeah.
the headline. So please,
Yeah.
I want to make that. I get a call. So they were protesting outside the gate. So you know how we have the sidewalk right outside the gate. These people were protesting outside the gate, and I know it for a fact that many people from inside the temple came outside and requested them with folded hands, because when they protest, Barkha, you have to understand they just don't come with banners which are threatening. They have
Hmm.
microphones. They start hurling abuses in Punjabi. This is
Hmm.
a Punjabi dominated area. So a lot of people who come to the temple over here are Punjabis, whether Hindu or Sikh. They understand and they hear what what is being said. And you know, it's constant barrage of abuses. People keep on requesting them. They don't listen. And then they up the ante even more. The abuses get even worse and worse. And then there are some people who try to counter protest as a response, and that's when people come close to each other. And then I sent you the video where the first punch was literally hurled by the Khalistanis, and then uh the Hindus over there who were counter protesting had nothing on their hand, and then they were beating them with sticks. Now what happened after that, as you can see in the video on the screen, is they entered the parking lot. They are entering the premises of the mandir, taking their sticks, and they're beating the innocent members up. This happens, then obviously word goes around. It was, I messaged you, I think late at night in
Hmm.
India, and then we have the situation. I changed my plan. I immediately came to the mandir, and then I
Yeah.
reached at around 4:35ish, and then I was trying to calm things down because the community was so enraged. They was like, what the hell, what are we going to do? And then, a lot of these boys had to be calmed down. I met like at least 4 kids who were beaten up. They're like,
Yeah.
भैया सुबह से खाना नहीं खाया, हमको क्यों मारा, हमने क्या किया है, हम तो पूजा करने आए थे और ये हमको मारना शुरू हो गए. They were very angry. And then a lot of them had to be calmed down. After that, I think we had a meeting of almost every single major temple inside, a representative. There were Hindu advocacy groups, and eventually,
What happened to the all the elderly Sikhs who were also inside?
well, they were kept inside for a while, and then after the police could calm things down in an hour and a half, 2 hours. By the way, the police does nothing. Barkha, I'm stating this on the record now. I'm not going to give names. मेरे सामने कॉल गया था इन एक बहुत सीनियर पुलिस इंचार्ज को, एंड आंसर वाज, well, you know what can we do beyond the point? Barkha, what does this mean? I'm talking about some really well connected Canadians making calls to the cops in front of me, and they're like, अब क्या करें beyond the point? मतलब कहना क्या? See, I used to, people used to call me a conspiracy theorist when I used to say there are Khalistanis everywhere. Now you understand there are Khalistanis everywhere.
But I think it's very important what you said about the fact that this is a Hindu and Sikh versus Khalistan issue, not a Hindu versus Sikh issue, right? It would please the Khalistanis no end if this were to become some sort of fissure and fault line, not just within Canada, Kushal, but also at home, right? So I think that's very, very important what you've just underscored. I want to open this up at this point. To get the ambassadors in. Ambassador Sinha, let me start with you, then come to Ambassador Dayal. Just first thoughts. I mean, crazy scenes.
Yes, it's quite crazy, and Canada seems to be getting what it is sowing is going to reap,
Yeah.
because Canada has been definitely promoting the Khalistanis. Uh, that RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police person who talked about naming people in India being responsible, they are the people who said that Indian diplomats are linked to homicides, extortion, and intimidation. I don't recall any of my colleagues when I was in service a decade ago being involved in extortion and homicides. If this obviously is a different kind of foreign service, if it is true, but I'd like to quote, just as Kushal has talked about the percentage of people who support Khalistan in Canada. Ujjwal Singh Dosanjh, who was a fairly important leader, now he's retired, he said that the figure is not more than 5%. And he
Yeah.
went on to call
Trudeau
Trudeau.
an idiot. I'm actually going to be speaking with him in an
Yeah,
hour from now. But in his column, he called Trudeau an imbecile and an idiot.
exactly, an imbecile and an idiot, which I think
Yeah.
Trudeau is. Because while other leaders have been condemning the violence, Trudeau has not really condemned the violence. He has said the violence is unacceptable, whatever that means. He has not used the word condemned. He has not used the word anything stronger than that. Even the mayor of Brampton and the other people have used the word condemn, but not Trudeau. Trudeau is clearly breeding these elements in Canada. I don't know why he's doing it. It's fairly obvious that he's in trouble because he's covering up the allegations, which are very serious, about people in his party and close to him taking money from China. That investigation report is there, but he doesn't want to publicize, but doesn't want to publish the report. That report is still secret. And while the opposition wants him to publish the report, he doesn't want to do that. So it is, and he's in deep trouble politically himself, but his policies have been there, well, from before, but then he seems to have carried it to a new level of idiocy, if you may call it.
Yeah, but the question, Ambassador Sinha, is I think there's large national consensus on Justin Trudeau. I once wrote of him that he was the most reviled public figure, possibly, and the most unpopular in India, more than some of the Pakistani leaders whom, that's a country India has gone to actual war with. My question for you briefly, and then I want to take the same question to Ambassador Prabhu Dayal. What should we be doing? One of the things I ask you every day, or that we talk about this, is, are we being too muted? There is the thing of linkages of families, of students, of language, of culture, in terms of the Punjabi or the Sikh community. But there is also the Indian state and the Canadian state, and what is going on, whether it is promoting Khalistanis, putting a hit on the back of our diplomats, accusing our diplomats of being persons of interest, accusing India without any evidence, naming the home minister, now this. I mean, does there come a point when it has to be looked at as a very different relationship, Ambassador Sinha?
It is a very difficult situation because the people, the average person there, as Dosanjh says, is intimidated by these extremists. And in a country where the police force itself is compromised, as Kushal just mentioned, then you have a situation where government of India really has very few options. You're not dealing with India, you're dealing with a foreign country. And in this situation, we also have a responsibility towards the vast majority of the people who are there, the people of Indian origin, as well as whether Hindus or Sikhs, as well as the larger relationship with Canada. So all that has to be protected from this imbecile, as he's called. And that's not easy because government of India has very few options. Government has to react. So I think the present reaction has been very good. We have kept it at a reciprocal level. We have reacted in exactly the same level. We have not raised the ante. And we are still providing the consular services to the community. We are still keeping the other aspect of the relations going. I think this is the best way of getting over this whole problem, to see if we can somehow get Trudeau isolated inside Canada.
Okay, Ambassador Dayal, do you agree that A, GOI has very few options, B, as India is walking sort of a tightrope between keeping the interests of people of Indian origin, students who study there, but keeping it reciprocal and equal? There are others who say, why isn't India doing more? Why isn't India being harsh? I know Kushal is one of those people, and I'm sure he'll speak for himself. Do you believe that GOI has very few options and these are the only options we have? Like, do you look at this as an internal law and order problem of Canada? Or do you believe that India must take a position on it? Look, let's remember, this isn't just about a temple being attacked. It is also about our own officials. This was a consular camp.
Barkha, first of all, I want to compliment you for drawing this clear distinction between Sikhs and these goons who call themselves Khalistanis. For Sikhs are the most loyal of all Indians. They are patriotic, but these goons are bringing a black name to the Sikh community. I also want to thank Mr. Charwak for the very vital information he gave, that when this matter was brought to the attention of the police there, they didn't do anything. And they said, well, they can only do things up to a point. This shows that these goons who attacked the temple had the sort of go-ahead from the Canadian police. And thirdly, Barkha, I want to thank you for highlighting the fact that this has become a state versus state phenomena. It is the Canadian state which is ranging against the interests of the Indian state. It is not just these Khalistani goons. It is the state of Canada which is giving them full support and which has become a hotbed for their activities. So, we don't just have to act against these so-called Khalistani goons. We have to take appropriate action against the Canadian authorities. Now, they have alleged that our Home Minister was behind the assassination of Nijjar. I think we have enough evidence available with us to show that the Canadian authorities are conniving with these separatist elements and that they are deliberately hurting India. I think we should bring this information out in the open. And what is more, I think we should also file cases in our courts against members of the Canadian government. For instance, there is this person called Hardeep Singh Hindu, who is a known offender. He is a fugitive from India. He is on the list of terrorists wanted by us, and not only has been employed by the Canadian authorities in their police, but he has also been recently promoted to the rank of a superintendent. This shows how the Canadian authorities are giving protection and encouragement to these extremist Sikhs. So we have to bring all this out in the open and take a harder posture. We have to file cases in our courts against people whom we want, and in other words, also against the Canadian authorities, because they have become extremely brazen about what they are doing. And we cannot take it anymore. I think we have to really become frontal, and really we have to hit them where it matters most. Now, the problem is, of course, we have a student community. After this, I think the students from India will not be so, happy or willing to go to Canada for studies. There will be a slowdown in this regard. But there are students who are already there. I understand from friends that the Canadian universities are not harming them, that they will not harm them because of the fact that it would bring a bad name to these universities. In fact, the students are bringing a lot of foreign currency. They are bringing a lot of dollars into Canada. So they are prized assets. I don't think the Canadian universities will harm them, but we have to be very careful about allowing people to go to Canada for studies or for any other purpose. So there has to be a hardening of the Indian position.
So those are two, I would say, interpretatively somewhat varying perspectives from Ambassadors Dayal and Sinha, not on fundamentals, but on options available to India. Before I come back to Kushal, Gurpatwant Pannun, this character designated a terrorist by India, a lot of Canadian friends, including Kushal, they drew a connection between his Diwali threat and what happened outside the temple. Now, is there a connection? Is there not a connection? I want to first play out again with the caveat, we are not platforming him, but sometimes playing these clips becomes essential because a lot of people don't know what he's up to, including Canadians themselves. Canadians themselves don't know who's Pannu, what he's up to, what kind of threats he's been making. So take a look at this one.
ਇਸ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਵਰਗ ਨੂੰ ਤੇ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੰਦਰ ਵਾਲਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ 1 ਨਵੰਬਰ ਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਮੰਦਰ, ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਹਿੰਦੂ ਭਰਾ ਭੈਣ, ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਹਿੰਦੂਆਂ ਦਾ ਘਰ ਆਤਿਸ਼ਬਾਜ਼ੀ ਨਾ ਕਰੇ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਸਿੱਖ ਪੰਥ ਪੰਜਾਬ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨੌਜਵਾਨਾਂ ਦੀ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਹੈ। ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਹੱਥ ਜੋੜ ਕੇ ਔਰ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਖਾਲਸਾਈ ਤਰੀਕੇ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਕਿਸੇ ਮੰਦਰ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੀ ਆਤਿਸ਼ਬਾਜ਼ੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਣੀ ਚਾਹੀਦੀ।
खालसाई तरीके से किसी भी ensure using a Khalsa method that there should be no celebration at a temple. I'm loosely, roughly translating the Punjabi there, Kushal. You see a very clear connection between the two, the threat and what happened outside Brampton. Of course, India has chosen to emphasize the consular camp there, not so much, the targeting of Hindus. The temple happens to be the venue, but the camp or the consular camp, the official position suggests, was the real target. You see a connection between Pannu's Diwali threat and what happened in Brampton.
Because it happened in Brampton and Surrey, British Columbia, both. And the events were all... I mean, it's the Sikhs for Justice who give a statement every time after all of these things. Barkha, first of all, I want to clarify this. Agar ab bhi MEA kuch nahi karegi, तो फिर MEA को भी हमको चिट्ठी लिख के दे देना चाहिए यहाँ पे कि भाई यू गाइज आर ऑन योर ओन, तुमको जो करना है तुसी ਤੁਹਾਡਾ देख लो, ਅਸੀਂ अपना देख लेने आ, एंड MEA को बंद कर देनी चाहिए काउंसलेट इधर. This man Pannu goes on CBC and he's on record saying, oh, I have been working with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau office for last 3 years. This is the Canadian government that is emboldening these thugs to work over here. I just try and understand, Barkha. There are more than 300 members of parliament in the entire Canadian system. Other than Chandra Arya, who did this in his individual capacity, and a brave Canadian of Chinese ethnicity, Kevin Wong. By the way, Kevin is the guy who exposed the Chinese interference recently in a press conference. And guess how many in the Canadian media picked up that press conference? A giant zero. A giant zero. You know, they call our media Godi media. Just for the record, these people. So Kevin and Chandra Arya are the only 2 members of parliament who write a tweet that mentions Khalistan. Look at everybody's tweet. Khalistan is like Voldemort in Canada. No one shall take that name. Why? Ask yourself. The MEA, I don't know what they are waiting for. I mean, मेरे को लगता है वो लोग एस्ट्रोलॉजिकल चार्ट्स देख रहे हैं अभी इंडिया के. शायद एस्ट्रोलॉजिकल चार्ट्स में लिखा होगा कि अभी शनि की दशा ठीक हो गई है, अब आप कनाडा की गवर्नमेंट के अगेंस्ट कुछ कर सकते हैं, तो शायद तब वो लोग करेंगे. But Pannu is working with the governments in Canada. He is on record stating that means and they are attacking Hindus and Sikh members of the community when there are government of India functions happening inside our community center.
So you were very harsh about MEA. The diplomats themselves could have been the target at this Brampton in this Brampton assault because there was a consular camp. So the diplomats also don't have an easy job in Canada. I mean, I just want to make that point.
Obviously. So the point is, what is the government of India doing? Why are we actively promoting trade with a country that threatens our diplomats, threatens Indian passport holders? Do you think everybody who goes to the temple over there is a Canadian passport holder? An overwhelming number of them are Indian passport holders over there. So the government of India has no responsibility? Is the government saying, एक बार plane से तुम land कर दिए Toronto, Canada में, हमने हमारा हाथ झाड़ लिया, तुम passport holder हो तो क्या हो गया? What nonsense are we talking about? And every time I come on your show, then 50 people will abuse me. बस आ गया कुशल गाली देने government of India को. अरे मेरे को कोई शौक थोड़ी है यार करने का. मैं करूँ क्या? किससे बात करेगा आदमी? If I'm an Indian passport holder, who am I supposed to talk to?
Right. Okay. I get your rage, and I think there's a kind of intuitive, commonsensical set of questions here. I'll come to Ambassador Sinha first. Ambassador Sinha, Ambassador Dayal argued that abhi bahut ho gaya. We've got to look at this as a state versus state phenomena. Now, there are two perspectives I've heard on Canada. One that looks at what's happening in Canada as an internal Canada issue that India can't get involved in beyond a point. But I think the point is, one, this involves our diplomats. Two, it involves our national security. Three, the people they protect and embolden are making threats openly every day about balkanizing India, targeting Indian Airlines. This doesn't seem to be an internal law and order issue of Canada. I get the point that there's little that we can do to release the Trudeau government from its toxic links with the Khalistanis. But, this question comes up again and again. Why trade? Why send students? What would you say?
Well, we have to ensure that our rage does not lead to the very people whom we want to help becoming the victims. If you have, let's say, only 5% of the Sikhs there and none of the Hindus supporting Khalistan,
Yeah.
then why should we stop consular services being given to them? When you stop trade, India is not China, so India cannot stop trade just by waving a wand. It will have to declare, take very serious action against Canada, and again you will be hurting yourself. Now, when our relation with Pakistan, we say, look, let's start at least trade, so that with trade perhaps relations will improve. Now here we are saying, no, take action against trade. Now, I don't say we should not take any action. Of course, we should take action. But the point is, what action can you take? You can't tell the Royal Canadian Mounted Police to start taking action. They're not under our control. But yes, we can take up the matter internationally. I think there are international forums where China supporting terrorists should be taken up. We have not done that yet.
Yeah.
We have not taken up the matter with any other country protesting against against Canada's behavior. And we also need to ensure that looking at the Canadian government people who are involved in this, they should be pulled up. And one of the actions that I think we can taking the cue from what Ambassador Prabhu Dayal was saying, is we can perhaps set up our own commission, a judicial commission, which can start investigating the matter and start summoning people like the head of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and say, look, we also want to get to the bottom of all these allegations. Why don't you come over and come and give evidence? So this is one way in which we can raise this matter. But simply going and saying that you stop trade or what do you do against Trudeau? Unless we send a 9/11 kind of Osama bin Laden, a force to kidnap him. That's exactly what Canada is accusing us of doing. That this is what we are doing. Now, we cannot become either a Pakistan or even the US for that matter.
Yeah.
We have to take it up internationally. By all means, we should take it up. Canada's gloss image, that Teflon-coated image, that must be demolished by us internationally.
I think that's a good point, Ambassador Dayal. At a time when Canada's Liberal MPs are actually trying to spread conspiracy theories about Kanishka bombing in the 1985 bombing that killed more than 300 people, 100 of them children, most of them Canadians, even if of Indian origin, in which justice was never served. Now you have pamphlets being distributed suggesting this is an internal India job and crazy, disgusting conspiracy theories. It makes you feel that there's a lack of awareness, just like before 9/11 the world didn't understand India's concerns on terrorism. Is that the route that you hammer this issue internationally? And here I'm going to ask a tricky question. Is our effort to do that complicated by the tangle we find ourselves in with the Americans on the issue of the same Gurpatwant Pannun?
Now, first of all, both Dilip and I are on the same page. Neither of us are saying that we should resort to some illegal sort of steps to try and hurt the Canadians. Both of us are saying exactly the same thing, that we have to take what are legally acceptable steps. I had mentioned taking up the matter through our courts and filing cases against those who we feel are guilty. Now, first, let me take up this US-related issue. One can't really be clear about how much cooperation there is between the US and Canadian authorities on this particular matter, but I think there is substantial collaboration. Both sides have been sharing intelligence and information, and if pressure is built up on the Canadian side, it is quite likely that the Americans will also build up pressure, but we have to be prepared for that. Now, it is true that we have a large community there. Are the Canadian authorities doing enough to protect the interests of that community? Mr. Charwak pointed out that the Hindus who are going to the temples are now sometimes feeling scared of what is going to happen. And in this particular instance, the Canadian authorities had been told that there would be a consular camp in that temple, and they had been requested to provide security. Despite that, security measures were not adequate. There were Hindus, but also Sikhs inside to get legitimate consular services. For instance, a lot of people at this time of the year require the life certificate, which they have to send to the pension authorities and the government of India so that their pension doesn't get discontinued. So a lot of these old people were there for that. And the Canadian authorities, instead of providing protection, collaborated and cooperated with these extremist goons to attack Hindus who had come there. Now, this is something we must take up through diplomatic channels in a legitimate manner with the Canadian authorities and point out how they are guilty of shortcomings. And we have to internationalize this matter. We have to go very aggressively to the media and let the story come out how the Canadian authorities are collaborating and colluding with these extremist goons. Pannu has openly been saying that he has been speaking to Trudeau for 2 years, 3 years, etc.
Correct.
That shows that Trudeau is hand in glove with these people. This is what Mr. Charwak was also saying. But you know, there's a limit to what government can do. Government cannot go and police those premises. That policing has to be done by the Canadian authorities. And I'm afraid that these same Canadian authorities appear to be unwilling to do their duties, and in fact, they appear to be colluding with the wrongdoers. So it's a very unfortunate situation which has to be internationalized.
Okay, I know Kushal, you want to comment, but before we take last comments from all three of you, one thing that hasn't been focused on enough is the disenchantment with the politicians, of course, but also with the police, right? And among the videos that have come out of Canada, you can hear, you know, anguished women, in fact, pointing to police officers, accusing them of excessive force, accusing them of double standards, that when Khalistanis desecrate the Indian flag, it's called free speech. But when the Khalistani flag, in response, to these protests that were taking place, were attacked by some of the devotees, then the police took a very different kind of response. I'll just play this video, and then I'll come to all three of you for last comments. Take a look.
He is the one. 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 Sir, take him out. Take him out. He is the one.
So we don't know why she's saying he's the one, he's the one, he's the one. But Kushal, we do know that a number of other videos, all citizen filmed, so we can't really ourselves confirm what happened, seem to be suggesting that there's a kind of double speak, a lack of responsiveness to complaints that have been made against Khalistanis. Let me bring you in for last comments. I know you also wanted to respond to both ambassadors, so do go ahead.
So, first of all, on the police bit, it's very simple, Barkha. Organize a protest where you oppose Khalistan in Canada and see how the cops respond to you. A, will you get permission? B, on which side of the road? C, what will be the distance from the spot you want to protest from. These are very important things, right? These are granular details that you have to look at when you analyze these things, because these are allegedly rule of law societies, right? They believe in the rule of law, and you'll get the answers, Barkha. And as far as the response from the Indian side is concerned, I have a serious question. So our strategy is that Barkha, the Canadians are kind of making this a quasi hostage situation. They know there are Indians here, so they will always use Indians as bait and hostage. Like sometimes I feel this is like Muhammad Ali Jinnah strategy during the entire India Pakistan fiasco, that I think we have a new modern day Jinnah in Justin Trudeau, who thinks अरे ये है ना ये इतने सारे Indian origin लोग, इनको मैं bait करके रखूंगा ताकि ये लोगों को मैं हमेशा use करूं as a bait, as a hostage situation. Barkha, we have to be very seriously considering to completely stop sending Indian students. Barkha, how many times have I told you on the record, that every month 4 to 6 Indian students commit suicide? Barkha, how many times have I shared my exasperation about sexual trafficking of our girls on this platform itself? Do we want to send more students so that they get sexually trafficked in Canada? Do we want to do that? I mean, how many more occasions do we need to stop? अच्छा, आप ट्रेड करना अरे कम से कम स्टूडेंट्स तो भेजना बंद करो, हमारे बच्चों को मरवाने के लिए भेज रहे हैं.
But the question there might be, and Ambassador Sinha did raise this point, that if you go into Punjab, from where a large number of people go, and not only from Punjab, I think 400,000, more than 400,000 students went from India to Canada in 2023. My question to you is, the students might say, listen, you states figure out your problems. Why are you punishing us? This is a legitimate educational destination for us.
बरखा, कोई कनाडा में नहीं जाना चाहता पढ़ाई के लिए, यहाँ पे पीआर के लिए आने रहे थे. और लेट्स गेट रियल बरखा, व्हाट वाज हैपनिंग वाज एन एंटायर ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग स्कैम अंडर द garb of immigration. A lot of these people who came here, they couldn't even speak a word of English. Let's get real. There are 80 diploma mills in Brampton, Ontario. उधर कोई पढ़ाई नहीं होती है. I mean, one next year, Barkha, I'm bringing you to Canada and I'm taking you around Brampton and I will show you these diploma mills. They don't come here to study, Barkha. Let us stop lying to ourselves.
I understand, but very briefly, Kushal, what would you have the government do at this point? I mean, can the government
stop giving student loans for Canada? No student loans for Canada.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Why can't the banks be instructed that any student loan for Canada will not be officially sanctioned by any bank in India? आप क्या है ना बड़े पैसे, आप आ जाओ, आप आ जाओ इधर Canada में. This is, Barkha, please try to understand, because nobody lives here, so they don't understand what happens. And I'm not saying that the ambassador, the threat level for the ambassadors is so scary, Barkha, because I don't want to take names, because I'm so involved with the community here. But please try to understand, they know they have created this hostage situation through the diaspora. Justin Trudeau knows this very well. This is like a hostage situation. ये क्या करेंगे? इनके 20-25 लाख लोग हैं यहाँ पे. And they know India in its heart genuinely cares, even if the diaspora is a Canadian passport holder, because they don't look at them as Canadians. They look at them as Indians. So they know कि ये अपने लोगों को कुछ नहीं होने देंगे, तो ये कुछ करने नहीं वाले हैं. Barkha, we have to change the stance and let them know हम करेंगे.
Okay, हम क्या करेंगे? Ambassador Dayal, closing comments?
Well, certainly, Government of India will be taking action in regard to discouraging students from going to Canada. I don't think government can put a blanket ban on these students. Nonetheless, there is certainly already something in the air that people are reluctant to go to Canada in view of this deterioration in the bilateral relations. But government has to take steps vis-a-vis the Canadian authorities. Government has to try and bring to book whomsoever it can, who is responsible within the Canadian authorities. Like police officers, we discussed this case of Sindhu, who is a superintendent there, who's a wanted man by us. We should book more and more people like that and have court cases against them and put pressure on the Canadian authorities so that these sort of activities which are being indulged in against us will come to at least a slow down. Because certainly the Canadian government being hand in glove with these extremist elements is a very big problem.
Okay, Ambassador Sinha, I think you would probably endorse Ambassador Dayal that there can't be a blanket ban, but Kushal suggests, okay, then make loans tougher. You've got to do something, because as long as you have a free flow of people from here to there, your hands get tied automatically, right? Because your main first concern is let the community not come to harm, let the diplomats not come to harm. You know, I don't know. I agree that one has to look rational, not punish people who have nothing to do with this. But at the same time, if we all agree that this is now a state-to-state phenomena, the state can't look the other way.
No, the state cannot look the other way. It should not look the other way, but it should also be practical. We cannot do things which will become unpopular with our own people. Our own people will start complaining that government of India is being high-handed. We don't have the most efficient bureaucracy in the world. You put a ban on student loans, there'll be other ways of getting past it. You know how people get out of India through all kinds of illegal means to migrate into either the US or Canada. I don't know. In Cambodia, you had 2,200 Indians doing cyber crimes. Now, there is a problem that we have in India. I think in this Canada issue, drugs play a very important role. I think there's a lot of drug smuggling that's taking place from Pakistan to Punjab, Punjab to Canada. And I suspect a lot of that money is flowing straight into Mr. Trudeau's pocket. And I'm making this very, very consciously because I don't understand what is it that is so important among these 5% Sikhs in Canada that makes them so important for Trudeau. Why is he prepared to destroy Canada itself, forget about Canada-India relations, purely for the sake of the small numbers? I think it's something little more sinister than that. And these are things that we should start investigating, taking action against that, so that the role that money plays in this is curtailed. The Indian community in Canada also needs to get itself organized. They should start speaking up. Their numbers are very large. So all these things have to be done. Awareness has to be raised. We just cannot go for banning things that government of India will not be able to enforce and then get a bad name and ultimately justify whatever Canada is trying to say.
Okay, I think Kushal has a 30-second interjection and then I'll let you close, Ambassador Sinha. Kushal?
The community has responded, Barkha. I was at the mandir yesterday from 4 p.m. for 4 in the afternoon till 9:30 in the night. A major bold step was taken. I mean, never in it, never in Canadian history as something as bold as this can be ever announced. Every single major Hindu organization has categorically made a statement. I shared the press release with you privately, Barkha. No Canadian politician is now going to be given a platform in any Hindu function. That's a bold statement. If you don't criticize Khalistan, you're not going to be given. Barkha, यहाँ पे politics बंद हो जाएगी. Ambassadors, दोनों ambassadors को आप पूछ लो how politics in Canada happens. They go to these mandirs, these gurdwaras, because that's where the communities come. See, Barkha, हमारे जैसा नहीं है ना कि mandir is, in every corner. There are limited mandirs, so they go to these mandirs. No, आप आओ पूजा करनी है as an individual devotee, आप आ जाओ, but you're not going to be given a platform. और क्या करे community?
I think again I want to just end by saying that there are Sikhs who do not have any links with Khalistanis, and they were sitting inside at that consular camp. I just want to keep reminding everybody so that this doesn't become a Sikhs versus Hindu issues, but it's a Hindu and Sikh versus Khalistani issue, as you said. Kushal, Ambassador Sinha, sorry, we've got to close. Just a 10-second there if you want to come in, or Ambassador Dayal.
Yeah, just one point. I think this consular thing was a very important slap in the face of the Khalistanis, because the Khalistanis say that government of India is persecuting Sikhs in Punjab. Now, here you have Sikhs sitting and taking consular services from the Indian officials to enable their pensions to continue. The pension comes from government of India. The government of India is sending its officials to protect the pensions of these people, these poor people who are there, these innocent people. So this is the biggest slap in the face of the Khalistanis. And that is why they are at this place.
I think that's a very good and important point, and that's why the power of these images is as important as the power, the negative sort of impact of that attack outside the temple in Brampton. We'll leave it there. Somehow I feel that the last word on this has barely been spoken yet. But we'll watch this space closely. Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, Ambassador Dilip Sinha, and Kushal Mehra, thank you so much. And to our audience, thank you. We do have an interview with Ujjwal Dosanjh, whom Ambassador Sinha referenced, who's called Trudeau an idiot, coming up at 7 p.m. on the platform, so you can catch that live. Thank you for watching. See you soon.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.